come through a family that are drunks, and you will define yourself based on your DNA. Thank God for the 46 chromosomes and eggs. We are deeper than eggs. There is something about you that is the DNA of God. And so when you begin to pray, what happens is that your God dimension begins to open up. And so a Rahab that is called a harlot can also be a progenitor of Jesus Christ. How can you juxtapose the destiny of a harlot and the destiny of a progenitor of Christ? They are two worlds apart. But when the immortals come into the league, there is something they can do that can bridge two impossibilities. A man who was a murderer in the name of Paul, of Saul, can suddenly become the greatest apostle. How can the destiny of a murderer and an apostle come together? When the immortals come in, anything is possible. And so when we begin to pray, what prayer does is to open the ambience of heaven. It's like a router. It opens the dimensions of heaven, and you begin to look into the realm where you were formed. And so you start defining yourself from your eternal perspective. Thank God for the success you record now. Please don't go to heaven like this. Because when you go to heaven, they will tell you Abraham was rich in cattle, but the destiny of Abraham was bigger than cattle. And so when Abraham had an encounter, they said, get out of your country. Who told you they can weigh you based on cattle? You are the father of nations. You are not the owner of cattle. You are the father of nations. And so if Abraham didn't have encounters, he would have defined himself as the richest cattle rearer. What a mundane standard. What a limitation. What a truncation of the possibilities of destiny. But when the vistas of heaven open, a man who should have been known as a cattle rearer can suddenly become the father of kings. And a point will come, even Jesus will come from the bloodline of Abraham. How can destinies be so changed? Because when the invisible realm open, you will discover that your possibility can only be equal to a dimension in God. Because when he made you in his image and in his likeness. Thank God you are able to make some money with your brain. You have an advantage beyond your brain. Come to the studio of eternity. So they looked up to him, and their faces were radiant, and they were not ashamed. I told them transformation has 3 protocols. The first is mortification. Your flesh will be subdued. The second is renewal of mind. You will be illuminated beyond the physics you read. You read philosophy and you think it's about argument. You are bringing deep questions and creating deep answers. Life is beyond deep questions. There is a place where your soul is fortizoed. Paul said when we pray, something happens. He said the eyes of your understanding will be enlightened. This your eye is for seeing. There's another eye called the eye of understanding. It is the eye of understanding that sees the things that cannot be seen. And he said that will not only happen. He said you will be illuminated with light. And the things you will now see will not be the answers to a biological question. The things you will now see, the Bible said, is the hope of your calling. Is the exceeding riches that the saints possess in light. And he said it is to make contact with the power. Not just an ordinary power, the power that rose Jesus from the dead. And so when a man begins to see, the authority to engender resurrection is credited to him. Then nothing in your hand can die. And so the business can be failing, but because your eyes have been illuminated, when you touch that dead business, the business comes back to life. Where people are seeing crisis, you begin to see opportunities. And when you create things out of it, they are wondering, what did you study? It's not what I study, it's where have you been? Ask me where I've been. I'm seeing what others can't see. There is an illumination that I have because I pray. When such things begin to happen, know that this person is going through transformation. They look at somebody, they say this person is wayward. When you looked at him, you saw a potential. You say, give me this person. And after 4 years, that person becomes the hope of a nation. And they are asking you, why didn't you write him off? I see what you don't see. That's what transformation does. It mortifies the propensities of the flesh that should limit you, and then it illuminates you until you only see from the realm of God. And finally, it transubstantiates you. And so you become like the God that you preach. You become like the God that you talk about. That's where things no longer fail with you. If you touch it, it changes. Because everything he is, you become that thing. Because when transformation is completed, he said, as he is. Not so are we in heaven. He said, so are we in this world. And so when we gather like this, we are not church members. That is when church becomes ecclesia. Because we become representatives of dimensions.